Well, here we are. It is Friday, August 15th, 2025. And this, of course, is the weekly video. We do these every Friday. We take a look at the antique and auction market. We focus heavily on Asian art. And we've been talking more and more lately about American furniture and European furniture because some activity going on there. Some good prices are happening in that market for the first time in maybe 20 years. So it's sort of interesting. But the Asian art market is doing just fine. It's been very quiet, as you all know, for the last couple of weeks, but it's picking up again. A number of sales have popped up in Europe. We're going to talk about a sale that's coming up at Roseberries, at Chiswicks. Waddington's in Canada's got a pretty good looking sale coming along, and so forth. We're going to touch a little bit on a sale at Gallery Zack. There's some interesting bits about a sale they've got of the Samuel Myers collection. And there's some strange stuff there too. But at any rate, we'll get into all that. First, we're going to talk about a few things that happened this past week. Skinner's yesterday finished up their carpet sale. They had rare carpets on offer over there, and here are some of them. And let's see here. This is one of the lots that was up. This very nice Chinese throne cover with dragons on it. We had talked about this sale a few weeks ago, sort of previewing it. This was a really nice throne cover. It was very fluffy. The pile on this was very, very good. And this was an early one. This was a nice old one, beautifully done. I don't even know what they dated. It looks like an early 19th century one to me, at least. Circa 1800. Okay, yeah, they did date it. Is an early one. It was estimated fairly modestly at $2,000 to $3,000. Ended up selling for over $5,000 with the buyer's premium, around $5,400 or so. But it was a very good example. It had wonderful color, but it had very nice pile to it. And here's the back of it, loosely woven the way these early ones are done. The older Chinese rugs tend to be very floppy, they refer to it in the rug trade as having a blanket-like handle. They're very loose. And it's also why they don't last terribly long. Chinese rugs were very, very soft and not particularly well suited to Western shoes. People in China tend to walk around with them on very soft silk slippers, so they didn't wear out as quickly. In the West, these things got demolished very, 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 very short order. But this was a very nice example, and it did just fine. And then there was this really nice Khotan rug, Asian carpet, beautiful colors. This rug had exceptional colors. It was very finely woven, a nice format, and so forth. And let's see, this was a decent sized one, as I recall. It was like 3 by 6 feet. This wasn't a little mat. This was a little bit bigger than that, also from around 1800. This did very well. This did really, really well. It ended up selling for $12,000 plus the buyer's premium. So that jumps off to about what is that? About $16,000 all said and done. All said and done, about $16,000 for that. And then the other Chinese rug, the Ningxia rug, again, decent sized one, 5 by 8 feet. Had wonderful color. This is a very well-known type with this orange background. Again, beautiful condition. I thought it was an awfully good rug. This was my favorite Chinese rug in the sale, and sold for $8,500 plus the premium against an estimate of just $4,000 to $6,000. So this is all good news for the carpet industry, because the carpet industry has also been in the doldrums for a number of years. And it seems to me that along with the change in the furniture market, we're seeing some sort of reactivation and interest in carpets. It's not strong yet, but it seems to be something's happening. I think maybe people are beginning to realize they'd like something nice, nice textiles, nice carpets to enjoy in their home. I hope that's the case, because they are great. I'm a carpet fan from way back when. And this one was estimated at $4,000 to $6,000, sold for $8,500 plus premium, or around $11,000. But a beautiful example, and that includes, when you add in the buyer's premium and so forth. And then there was the rug I'd talked about quite a bit in this sale. I think it was the first rug or the second rug in the auction. Hold on a second. We have to go back to page 1. Hold on. Oh, it was the second rug in the sale. This one. This was, I thought, one of the prettiest Kazakhs I'd seen in a long time. It was a tree Kazakh, 6 by 10 feet. I talked about this a lot, too, just because I thought it was such a gloriously pretty rug. And a big one, 6 by 10 feet. Sort of an unusual format for Western houses, but you could certainly use it somewhere or hang it on a wall like a tapestry. And it ended up doing about $9,000 with the buyer's premium, a little over that. And it was an interesting sale. I even bought a rug for myself for my own home. It was actually this This Turkoman rug went very inexpensively. I bid on it over at Bonham's, and I accidentally put a bid over here, but I put a bigger bid on at Bonham's and ended up getting it for around. It wasn't expensive. It was very reasonable. I'm using this. This is going to go inside my house. You'll see it in a few weeks when I'm going to pick it up. It's going to be in the area where I do the some of the photography for the Patreon side when I do unboxing and show things that we picked up. I've been looking for a really nice rug to put on the hardwood floor there for a while, and this is the perfect size. It's 6 by 9 feet. It's an area off the end of my living room, and it'll be perfect for there. And I'll be able to walk on it and not worry about it too much. It was very inexpensive. You know, I think I paid it was $440 plus the premium. I think I left a little more than that, but it ended up at about $560 for a very nice late 19th century techie carpet. And it was in fairly good condition. It had a little glue on the edges from when it was attached to something at some point, but very unusual border pattern. I was thrilled with it. I thought that's great. It's a good thing. And I have a spot for it. So there we go. All right. Now, what else is going on? This sale took place. This was the one at Abington's. And as we thought, stuff would do well, and it did. It did just fine. There was this very nice, either late Ming or early Qing Dynasty jade cup and stand, very nicely done. You see the stands around often without the cups. They often got separated over the years, and every once in a while somebody will come across one of these trays with the round hole in it that was meant to receive a cup, and they say, "What would go in there?" And this is what went in there, one of these cups. And somebody paid 19 plus premium, or around about $2,400 for it. And this also had the wallpaper that we had talked about, Chinese wallpaper, late 18th century paper, very nice looking examples. They were just listed as paintings, but they were actually wallpaper. And in the end, they did great. They ended up selling for about $7,000 with the premium against a $2,000 to $4,000 estimate. That's a very good result. And then the Edward Farmer sterling ink set. This was a wonderful thing. I love this thing. Yamanaka and Edward Farmer did these. I have a very nice Yamanaka piece. It's a Lang Yao pot with a jade cover and a silver liner and all that business that I actually gave my wife 20 years ago. And this is one that was done by Edward Farmer, and it has a nice carnelian immortal on top, and then a jade disc here, nephrite jade cup. Then the Farmer organization added this silvered rim onto it, so it opens up like an inkwell, and this nice jade tray underneath. Beautiful assemblage. This is what they did, and it ended up going for about $6,000 with the premium. All right, so that was a good result overall. The whole sale did well. You can go look at it. Abington Auctions, if you want to get a feel of it. This was obviously a collection out of an estate of some kind. There was a very strong continuity in the style and type of things, so it was pretty clear that there were about 8 or 10 pieces all came out of the same estate, the way it looked to me. All right. Now, moving along over to this was that little Kangxi plate that we talked about last week. This was funny. We mentioned this in the video because it had one watcher, me, on it. That was it. And I wasn't going to buy it. I just noticed it. I said, that's a good-looking Kangxi dish. Estimated $200 to $300. This was an affinity auction, said Fresh Meadow, New York. But a couple days before the sale, it had nobody watching it. I couldn't understand it. And then I checked on Saturday after we did the video, and I think a bunch of you went over there. It ended up having 30 watchers on it, which it deserved it. Things should get attention. Somehow it went under the radar. I don't know why. But this was a very nice dish. And I don't think it sold for a huge price. I think that was a very, very reasonable price for one of these sweet little blue and white Kangxi dishes. Perfectly reasonable, $250 plus the premium. You end up at about $320 for the dish. And this was the other piece that was in the sale that I thought was also very, very nice, that had maybe 5 people watching it or something, some tiny number. This very nice Yongchen period teapot. And I think this was a very good buy. I think this was actually well under the money for what it was. This looks to me to be a $1,500 to $2,000 teapot. Had it been getting a little more attention, I think it would have gotten there. But for some reason, these 2 pieces just slid right under the radar. I'm not sure why. All right, and then this was an interesting thing. This was at the Bonham's Skinner sale, the Americana sale. They just finished the other day on the what day was this? The day before yesterday, I guess it was. This very nice federal mahogany sofa. And what was interesting to me about this was originally sold by Israel Sack and Company in New York. And if you know about Israel Sack and you're an American furniture collector, you can imagine what they paid for it from Israel Sack and Company. This was a very nice sofa, very nice proportions, completely appropriately upholstered. You don't have to do anything to this. This was a great looking piece of furniture. It had a very modest estimate of $1,500 to $2,500, sold for $2,800 plus the premium, or around probably $3,600. But I will tell you, when did they buy this from Israel Sack? Did they say? Israel Sack, 1968. They probably paid a couple of $1,000s in 1968 for this from Israel Sack. Israel Sack was the sort of the preeminent American furniture dealer in the United States for many, many, many years. It started out in Boston. There's a storied history. Albert Sack and Harold ended up running it. And I didn't know Harold, but I knew Albert, and he was a wonderful guy, very colorful, very funny guy. He sold the guy, he retired, and they closed the shop back a few years before he died. And he ended up working with Northeast Auctions with Ronnie Bourgeau, and he and Ron were good friends for a long time. And Albert was unbelievable. All he wanted to do was look at American furniture, and he was a legend. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of the stuff. He was absolutely amazing. And I've got some hilarious Albert Sack stories when he was a kid. But at any rate, this was something they sold. And the rest of the sale did fine. The rest of it, go check it out so you can see what the prices were. They did very, very well. And I should point out, too, that New England Auctions had a sale this week of American folk art, Fred Giampietro. They had good results this week too. I think overall they did very well. So we're going to continue to follow it. We'll see how things go. All right, and then there was this I mentioned last week. This was a piece that was at Swarter's over in the UK. Somebody got a really good buy on this. This was just listed as an Afghan rug. This was a very nice late 19th century sari choual. This wasn't a rug. This was a saddlebag front. And these sari pieces tend to be pretty big. This one measures 160 by 98 centimeters. So it was about 5 by 3 feet in size. So it is a rug size, but this was a saddlebag cover. And it would have had a woven back on it, and it would be used when the nomads moved there from grazing area to grazing area during the year, and they pack up their yurts and all their stuff. These would be basically their suitcases or their trunks to put all their stuff in, and then they would serve as a dual purpose, as decoration and something to lay on. Sometimes they would even use them as blankets. But this was a very, very nice one. And somebody picked it up, I think, very reasonably, $257 plus premium. That was a great buy. In the past, we've seen these sell for $600 to $800 pretty comfortably most of the time. All right, and then this is coming up. Marion, right? Marion Auctions has this. They have a sale coming up. It'll be on the global pages by tomorrow. There's some nice things there. This plaque caught my eye. It's a late Qing or early Republic plaque, but it's beautifully painted. It is not signed anywhere. All right, so you don't have to worry about trying to authenticate signatures on this, but it's beautifully done. This is a very nice Famille Rose plaque of Lohans or immortals, or scholars rather, looking at a scroll. Here they are with some attendants and so forth. Very nice shading, wonderfully painted, nicely focused on the center of the plaque and so forth. It's all framed and ready to go, and it's got a peanut estimate of just $200 to $400. It will bring more than that. It should bring $1,000 to $1,500, I suspect. It measures the porcelain itself is 18 inches tall and 12.5 inches wide, so it's pretty good size. But it's a very attractive bit of art, and I hope one of you maybe buys it for yourself. All right, and then this is coming up at Thomaston Place up in Maine at Kaja Bayou's auction house up there. This is coming up on the 30th. It's a very nice, very unusual, large Kisi panels. Typically, we see Kisi panels are done in sort of these narrow strips that are so ubiquitous. These are much bigger. These are like double strips. And I don't see seams down the middle, so these were made on big strips. I would ask them to find out about the color, because they look like the way they lit them, it washed the colors out a bit. I don't think the colors are this washed out looking. I'm going to bet they're not. I think they just got overlit in the way the silk or the silk weaving and the ground fabric reacted. I think it made them look a little bit more faded than they really are. But these are really good Kisi panels if the colors are a bit brighter. The estimate is reasonable, $1,500 to $2,000. But wonderfully done. These are fairly large too. Each of them measures 48 by 27 inches. So they're 27 inches wide at the bottom, which is just about double the size of a normal Kisi panel in width, and quite tall. So they do tend to be tall, but they don't tend to be this wide. So these would make a room if somebody bought them. And of course, you're at a huge advantage if you live in the area and you're able to go to the auction. And look at that. There's a little cricket. You can't see it. There's a cricket crawling around here. Hello, come on. There you go. I don't see crickets during the day. What's he doing? So anyway, it's a nice piece of Kisi work. It's a good example. All right, and then over to this. Let's see here. This is some of the stuff. There aren't a lot of other results to talk about, really. It's, like I said, it's been very, very quiet. We'll go up here to the beginning and look at past sales over the last week. Okay, these. Okay, there we go. That's it. This is the Skinner sale here. Not much else has happened. That's sort of the way it is. All right. So I'm not missing anything, and neither are you. Now, over to here. This is, we're going to get up to the top of the screen so I have them in order. This is the Waddington sale up in Canada that's going on in a couple of weeks. It's happening on the 21st, a week from now. It's an interesting sale, and there's some good things in here. Sometimes Waddington has stuff that you're a little bit question. At Waddington's, the deal is if they don't put a hard date on something, you probably want to stay the heck away from it. If they say likely, possibly, anytime any auction house says possibly certain period, possibly 18th century, possibly Ming, you always want to be very suspect at that moment and say, or they'll say 18th century or later. And sometimes later means the auction house is their way of getting out of it, saying it's new. All right. So you don't want to see or later very often unless you really, really know what you're doing. But this is Waddington. They got a couple of nice slots in there. I would suggest you go through it. There's some good early wares. There's some decent looking bronzes in this sale. There's some nice Japanese pieces in the sale. There's 10 pages of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff in here. This is a very big sale. I'm going to go through a few of the lots, but I would urge you to go and look at them. I think I've got some decent things here. There's a Kangxi brush pot that's particularly nice. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Also is this Sung oil spot bowl. And of course, there's a lot of fakes of these on the market. You want to be really, really careful. And for some reason, I don't know what happened with the photography on this, but that's one of the most useless photographs I've ever seen, other than they have one area of reflection where they took the time to get something on there. But this is the inside of the bowl, and the rest of it's all washed out because they are hard to shoot. I get that, but boy, this was not done very well. And it has been tested. They had it TL tested right here and here. Now, those are the drill marks from the Oxford thermoluminescence test, which is the only TL test worth getting done to date objects. I've had a bunch of cases in the last year. I just had one recently from a man who had gone to this sort of shyster TL testing outfit. I think they're in Colorado or something, who will basically put whatever date you want on things or whatever they think will make you happy. That's the date they'll put on it, it seems. And he had sent me some images, and I said, no. I said, that it's clearly not. And he said, well, I have a TL test. I said, well, is it from Oxford? And he's, no, it's from this other outfit. Do not waste your money on any TL test other than Oxford. Well, Oxford's not a waste of money. They're actually actual real scientists, and they actually do the job. So you can rely on it. I'll put it that way. All right. As long as the TL test certificate matches the object. Sometimes people have been known to make copies of TL tests from Oxford because they know what it means. But this one looks legitimate, and this TL test is brand new. I got a feeling they wanted to consign it to Waddington's, and Waddington said, you're going to need to get a TL test for this. And they date it as being 600 to 1,000 years old. That's the range they often give things by a couple of hundred years. But it looks fine to me. It's estimated at 20 to 30,000 Canadian. Or 10,000. The starting price is 15,000 Canadian or 10,000 US. It should get there. It should get up to 15 or 20,000 in US dollars. It certainly looks okay. The decoration on it is good from what I can see, but the photography was a little bit dark. Again, if you're shooting something dark against white paper, don't do it. Shoot it against a grayscale paper. You'll get more detail out of it because the camera will be able to see it more. and give you better color resolution. All right, and then over to this is also in the Waddington sale. This very nice. There's some good Blanc de Chine in here. There's also some very good 20th century Blanc de Chine, very high-end Blanc de Chine. There is a bunch of these wares that are being made today that are quite excellent. The Irving family, who had that great Chinese collection, much of it went to the Met. They had a very nice collection of early 20th century Blanc de Chine pieces. They're quite exceptional. They're quite exceptional. They're all made in Doha, of course. And this is in the sale. This is very nice. It's very reminiscent of that ivory carved bowl that we saw a few weeks ago that was in a sale up in New Hampshire. Here you have this Doha bowl. It measures about 5 inches, 6 inches in diameter, 5.9 inches in diameter. But a nice looking one. Appears to be 18th century from what I'm seeing. The estimate is very reasonable. 400 to 600 Canadian, or that comes out to about 250 to 350, $400 US. I think that's perfectly reasonable. It should bring more than that. There's an 18th century one. It should bring 800 to 1,000. All right, and then this is more ivory in the sale. Like I said, there's I was thinking to myself, ivory seems to be really turning up in auctions, especially in Canada and in Europe. And here you have a very nice ivory lot. There's a very finely reticulated Cantonese style brush pot on the left, and this very nice card case. Beautiful card case. That's a good one. As you know, I collect ivory. I've got a couple of these, and sort of like this. This is a very good case, and this is wonderful work. This reticulated business. This is a very, very finely done pierced pot. All right. Now, if you're not in Canada, be very careful buying this, because you may not be able to get it imported to the United States or any place else in the world. There are restrictions, and you don't want to get caught smuggling ivory out of Canada into the U.S. because you go to jail for a few years. I think the last time I heard somebody got caught, I think they got 4 years. It's no joke. So just so you know, but you may be able to get a CITES permit, and you should look into that. All right, because this would be worth bringing in. There it is. There's a whole thing in here. This may be prohibited for export. But if you have somebody in Canada that can pick it up for you, go get it, and then worry about a CITES permit afterwards. All right, you may be able to bring it into the U.S. And also, after ownership of a certain amount of time, as personal property. But you have to go through a process for that, and I'm not a lawyer, so if you want to look into it. But there's a bunch of ivory up there in this sale. Also, Netsuke's inrows and so forth, other stuff, Japanese okamono. So it's worth looking. It's worth looking. And then there's this also. This is a very nice 15-inch Kangxi period charger. Very well drawn. This is a good-looking plate. And I looked at the back of it. I didn't see any damage to it. But that very classical pattern of the lotus lappets going off the center, and there's the lotus in the middle. But nice shading, nice mix of light and dark blues. Very well done. And over 15 inches in diameter. Estimated at 1,500 to 2,000 Canadian, or roughly that comes out to about $1,000 to $1,500, which is more than reasonable. And this you can import just fine without any problem at all. All right. And then this is a really nice, probably early Ming, possibly Yuan, Celadon vase. Been through Christie's apparently at some point. It looks completely legitimate. It's probably not very big. Usually they're 6 or so inches, 7 inches, 7.8 inches. There you go. A little under 8 inches in height. It's got a little nick at the top out of the rim and so forth. That might be a kintsugi repair. But the carving on it's quite appealing. The carving on it's very, very nice. The estimate's reasonable, $1,000 US starting price. It should get up there. It should bring 2,500 to 3,500 US, somewhere in that range. The estimate is 3,000 to 5,000 Canadian, just to give you some idea. All right, and this is also in the sale, and this appears to be, based on the pictures, a very nice Kangxi underglazed blue Celadon brush pot with underglazed red, underglazed blue and underglazed red, and it's getting some interest. It's already up to $7,200 US. That is a 15 to 20,000 Canadian dollar estimate, which is about 12 to 16,000 US. I think it should get there. I think it should get up beyond that. This is a pretty rare bird, and the bottom of it looks absolutely fine. The side shots of it look good, and it's all these immortals running around the outside of it. I think it's pretty great, and we'll see how that does. We'll come back afterwards after the sale's over. And then you have this one. Now this is Roseberries. And we've been watching Roseberries for the last couple of years. We've been keeping an eye on them because they've been turning up some really interesting stuff. Well, this is their unreserved sale. If you like unreserved sales, this is something worth looking at. There's nothing in here that's worth, $80,000 or anything like that, but it's got some really good solid items that for the what I call the regular collector, the real world collectors, people who just love the stuff, and they buy things for under $10,000 typically. That's the bulk of the market. Most of the Asian art market are things under $10,000, or certainly under 15,000. A few things outliers go above that, but it's not the bulk of the trade. It's not the bulk of the business. The bulk of the business are these kinds of things, just interesting, beautifully done pieces from the Ming through the Qing dynasty, even to the Republic period. And there's some nice examples in here. There's some nice monochromes and so forth. Read the descriptions carefully. They give pretty good descriptions. They're a little skimpy on pictures, but they do have them. There's this. It's nice. This is a tang pot. Nice looking piece of tang where I estimate 500 to 800 pounds. 200-pound opening bid, no reserve. Remember, no reserve. There's no minimum selling price. So if you put the minimum opening bid in, you may get it for that. All right. This is the kind of sale I joke about carpet bombing an auction with bids. This is an auction you want to carpet bomb with bids because you probably are going to get something. Just leave the opening bid. Okay. That's all you need to do. You don't have to go wild with all kinds of bids. Just leave a few, smattering of 40 or 50 bids on their sale. That's the way to do it. I know people that do that all the time, and they don't get everything, so you don't have to worry about that. But every once in a while, you get 2 or 3 things for a really, really reasonable price because people aren't paying attention all the time. It's as simple as that. All right, so keep that in mind. And then hopping along, Agouts in France is having a sale. They're a good French auction house. They have some very nice auctions over the years. So this is a good one. It's their September sale. It is on September 10th, and they've got some nice paintings in here, some good porcelains. There's Japanese stuff and Chinese. There's a little bit of both. French auctions I always find interesting because the French taste is different than what you find in Northern Europe in the Dutch market. It just is. There's just a different style, different flavor, different feeling to the stuff based on the French sensibilities versus the Northern Europeans and so forth. And they've got some good things in this sale. There's this for the European market. This is a plate that was actually copied. I don't know whether Meissen copied it from them or they copied it from Meissen, but it's a China trade plate. And there was a lot of overlap between the Meissen factories early on and the Chinese porcelain makers on certain designs and the Japanese as well. Meissen was very much in that mix. But this is a Chinese export plate with a pattern that's associated with Meissen, and it's for the Dutch East India Company, I believe. All right, estimate is very reasonable, 200 to 300 euros and so forth, so it's worth taking a look at. And then there's this, of course. I thought this was lovely aesthetically, this beautiful piece of silkwork. First, I thought it was a carpet when I came across it, but then you look at it carefully, you realize it's apparently silkwork. It's kind of dark. You may have to ask them for better pictures if you like this, but it's a beautiful looking thing with this lovely dragon in the middle. It appears to be an early 19th century example. It measures 36 by 51 centimeters, or about 15 inches by about 1.5 feet. So it's not a huge thing. It's a small thing, so it would be cheap to ship. Now, remember, textiles are very inexpensive to ship. Sometimes they can put them almost in envelopes and just mail them to you. But this is a nice looking thing. All right, and then this is coming up at the Kenzia in Germany. This Kenzia is a good little auction house. I have a number of you out there. I know you shop there because I get the identification service inquiries from them all the time. There's several of you over there. It's like a secret garden for shopping, I guess. And they have things like this. This very nice lotus petal kangxi dish coming up in a sale. It's a nice looking auction. And then there's this. This caught my eye. These are really nice little bronze. It's a small one. It's a small one. It's only about 2 or 3 inches long, but it looks like an 18th century example to me. It's got a very nice looking surface on it. The facial expression I like. The gilding looks good. This doesn't look like a copy to me. And the estimate is for nothing. It has no estimate, 0 to 0, with a $200 opening price on it. This is a nice little bronze, I believe. Hey, Buck, what are you doing, buddy? And it measures, they're dating it as just 18th century. They tend to be a little bit conservative over there. It's 6 centimeters long, or about 2.5 inches, or no, 12.5 centimeters long. So it would be just a little over 4 inches in length. Nice looking bronze, about 2 inches wide, but very, very attractive. And the estimate is peanuts. And of course, the shipping would be nothing as well. So if you like scholars and tables objects, you definitely want to look at this little bronze. All right, and then hopping along over to this. Now, this is sort of a strange thing. And I know some of you remember we had a kerfuffle with Roseberys Zackes a few months ago because they were upset that I pointed out something they were selling that we didn't think was authentic and still don't, but that's another story. Anyway, we had the famous cease and desist order, and then we had to do the reply video and all that. So I mentioned them again with some hope that they can at least mind their manners this time. This is a sale that's coming up, and it's part of it's a sale. It's a collection of Sam and Myrna Myers. What? Oh, got to throw the ball. Here we go, buddy. Sam and Myrna Myers. Now, they were longtime collectors. They're very well-known collectors. Their stuff's been, some of their collections have been exhibited at the Kendall Museum and in books and published and so forth. And they lived in France. He and his wife moved to France. There's a sort of a legendary story about the Myerses. And they went to France. I believe he was a lawyer. He went to Yale and had a very successful career. And they took up collecting. They started out with antiquities, and they eventually moved over increasingly into Asian art, in particular early Chinese art and so forth. And they had some very nice things. And a couple of years ago, a bunch of their stuff, Myrna passed away back well over 10 years ago, I guess. And a couple of years ago, in 2020 or 21, they sold a number of pieces from the collection were sold at Sotheby's. And then apparently whatever's left over, what's left of this collection is being sold by Roseberys Zackes for some reason. Any rate, but I was going through it and I saw some things that little red flags, and I just want everybody to sort of keep that in mind. One of them was this Mei Ping vase, and I don't know what happened, but this was in the Sotheby's sale, and it had a restoration to the mouth that was well known. This is a very rare type, and at the auction it was estimated at £400,000 to £600,000 and sold for £378,000. Now, from what little I know of Mr. Myers, he was a little tough to deal with as far as values go. So he probably pushed Sotheby's hard for fairly high reserves and high estimates, I have a feeling. But at any rate, this sold, according to Sotheby's, for $378,000. But it's now back in this sale coming up at Zackes with an estimate that's been cut way down and an opening price of just $44,000. This is the same vase. All right, but what I found disturbing was that Roseberys Zackes goes through all this length to point out all these places where it's been exhibited and all this, and it's all legitimate. It has been. All right, but there are a number of lots in this sale that had been through Sotheby's and either didn't sell or didn't get paid for. There was some kind of a problem, like this Mei Ping vase. I'm assuming this isn't the person that paid $400,000 for it, reconsigning it 3 years later. So I have to assume something went wrong at the time it was sold. Who knows? Who knows what it was? I'm not saying Sotheby's did anything wrong. I'm not saying Roseberys Zackes is doing anything wrong here, other than they're not mentioning that this has already been sold at Sotheby's a few years ago when they go through the provenance. Sotheby's is not mentioned in here, and they do all this extra stuff, and it's related to, and they have comps. The one that was at the Poly auctions, 2 Poly sales they mention as a comp, but they don't mention the most obvious comp, which is the one that they just had where it sold for at Sotheby's for $378,000. All right, so it's a little weird, and this is something I've noticed that Roseberys Zackes does. They have things in their sales that were just a few months earlier in a sale in France. It's now in their place, and they list provenance going back much further, but they don't bother mentioning the most recent sale. And we all know why. But it's not right. They should mention it. When you're getting into this kind of money, 50, 60, $80,000, you got to level up with everybody. You're going to have a very angry buyer if they find out, if they didn't know it was sold at Sotheby's 3 or 4 years ago and was reoffered, and you didn't tell them because you obviously know because you're getting it from the Myers family. So for some reason, it didn't get paid for. All right. And the same thing goes with this. This was in the Sotheby's sale, had a 30 to 40,000 pound estimate. Nice looking double gourd vase with outside enamels, Ming, one Li period, and all that. And for whatever reason, it didn't sell. And now it's here with a 7,000 to 15,000 euro estimate. And that's not an unreasonable estimate. It's a perfectly reasonable estimate. And it may represent a bargain to somebody. But in this case, they've thrown in some comps. They tend to use fairly irrelevant comps. This is one that was from 2013 of a nearly identical example. It almost looks like the same vase. I don't think it is, but it's very, very similar. We'll put it that way. There it is. And that one sold for 22,000, but that was back in 2013 when the market was a lot stronger than it is now. That's when things were going for crazy money, and the market has since slowed down. So they're estimating this more sensibly, I think, this time at 7,000 to 15,000 euros with a 3,000 euro opening bid, 3,800 euro opening bid. But do keep that in mind. This isn't mentioned at all either, that it went through Sotheby's. Neither is this one. This went through Sotheby's with a 10 to 15,000 euro pound bid. It didn't sell, and I don't doubt its age. I believe it to be Ming certainly, but it wasn't marked, and it didn't sell. And now it's at Gallery Zack, and there's a huge write-up here, exhibition history, and all this other business, but no mention of it having been to Sotheby's and being passed. All right. And that kind of lack of transparency annoys me. Then you have this, the same thing happened here. Ken Randy Ewer with cover, Ming Dynasty. And this is the strange part, is it had at the Sotheby's sale, it had the cover, and now it's being reoffered here at 1,500 to 7, with a 1,500 euro opening bid, 3 to 6,000 euro estimate, considerably down from the $20,000 to $30,000 estimate. But where'd the lid go? It doesn't have its lid anymore. So I don't know what happened. It's very strange, and there's no mention of this having been in some other auction, all right, and so forth. So be a little mindful of these things when you're looking. This was the Sotheby's sale. It was a wonderful auction, but they did have a lot of buy-ins, it seemed. They had a number of buy-ins in this sale. And again, I think maybe sometimes consigners who have been longtime collectors can be very, very difficult when it comes to estimates and reserves. And what they don't realize is that by demanding high estimates, it can often sabotage a piece. Because people just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to be. You're a collector. You're selling your collection. They'll let you shoot yourself in the foot. And now what's going to happen is the dealers let them shoot themselves in the feet. And now the stuff's back on the market a few years later with estimates a third to half of what they were just a couple of years ago. And it's sort of a rough situation. But at any rate, those are the pieces. But always check around when you see pieces. If they look familiar to you, do some homework and snoop around and see if it isn't a rerun or something happened, because that's part of the piece's history too. And it's important to know these things. All right. So that's sort of it. All right. And there's some jades in the sale that I to me didn't look all right. So some Kongs and things, I would be very, very careful there. They may have been mistakes that Mr. Myers made. I don't know. A few of them looked very suspect with very low estimates compared to what an authentic one would be worth. $4,000 or $5,000 as opposed to hundreds, a million, those kinds of things. And you shouldn't ever use estimates that are that far apart with a comp. It's just bad practice. And Zach and a number of auction houses do it. And I just think it's a really dumb practice because it's dishonest and it makes you look sleazy. All right. And I'm not saying Zackes is sleazy. So if you're a lawyer with Zackes, just chill out. Okay. All right. That's it for the week. Next week, I'm sure there'll be more stuff coming along. There's a couple of sales closing out, but do check out Chiswicks and Roseberries and so forth. And you may get yourself a steal from Gallery Zack. I'm just saying. The piece is the piece. You never punish the piece based on who's selling it. You maybe swoop in there and get yourself a bargain because they're stuffed the second time through the cow. But I would be very cautious around some of the jades. Just saying. All right. Have a great weekend. Subscribe here if you haven't. Join us over on Patreon. We put a bunch of stuff up over there this week, including a couple of videos and so forth. And thank you. There's some new people that joined us, and thanks for doing that. And we'll see you next week. All right. Bye-bye.